Hello and welcome to the video lecture series presented to you by St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management. My name is Ravinder. I'm an assistant professor with the DC department, and we're discussing the subject called Programming for Problem Solving using C. And today we're going to see the implementation of algorithm. That is, we have discussed in the last lecture what is the idea of algorithm, how we can write the algorithm. We're going to see the two ways to write a particular algorithm, that is the pseudocode and the flowchart. So I will head to the slides first, and I will let's say go back to and fro in the slides to make you understand what is the actual meaning of flowchart and how to write the pseudocode of that particular flowchart. So we're going to take a very simple problem, even a childish problem, and I will make you understand how the flowchart works and how the pseudocode works. Okay. Okay, let me slide show it. Yeah. So I'll not go to this slide first. I will show you first an example. Now we have an example here of pseudocode and its implementation in the form of flowchart. Okay, so let's start with the flowchart first, and after the development of flowchart, or after we have understood completely how the flowchart works, we'll try to develop its pseudocode. I have already done that, so I will make you understand how what are the rules of writing a pseudocode and what are the rules of developing a flowchart. So let's start with the, now this here is your flowchart and this here is your pseudocode of the same problem. Now let's start with the beginning. So your algorithm will always start with the keyword start. As you can see here, in the flowchart, you can see a box with rounded edges which contains the keyword start, and inside the pseudocode you can always see, you can also see we have initialized the algorithm or the pseudocode of the algorithm by using the keyword called start. Now uh, you must always keep in mind that these keywords called start, read, if, else, and if should always be written in caps. Okay, you should not do that what I have done here. You should do by writing those in caps only, because that is the normal convention. It is not an hard and fast rule. You can also get away by writing it in the small words, but it is good practice to write all the keywords in the capital letters. Also inside the pseudocode, try not to use the lower case letters. Try to use only capital letters. So we have started the flow chart by using this particular block. So let's see what is the meaning of this block. Okay, so the oval indicates the beginning or end of the program. Now this is an oval shaped or an egg shape. Now this always indicates the beginning or end of your flowchart. As you can see here, this is not exactly the shape that you can see here, but it will give you an idea. This particular, let's say, is being developed. Flowchart has been developed using the Paint and the what is that word? Microsoft Office. So we don't have exact oval shapes there. So I try to do make an oval shape by using the resources available. So please pardon me. But it will give you an idea that you can see here the start of the flow chart and end of the flow chart actually consist of oval shaped boxes. And inside those boxes, I have used the two keywords called start and stop. So it is essential before the start and oval inside an oval shaped box, there must be no in any other let's say shape which that let's say from this particular start block there your flow chart must start, and in the end this particular oval shaped box which consists of keyword stop must always be the end of your flow chart. So your algorithm must be inside these two oval shaped boxes, not inside but in between these two boxes here. And as you can see, it's quite similar with the pseudocode. Pseudocode always start with the keyword start and ends with the keyword stop. So this is your first lesson, that your pseudocode as well as your flowchart must always begin with start and stop keywords, and flowchart, these two keywords must always be enclosed by the shape called oval, as you can see in your on your screens now. Now next is we have a parallelogram here shaped, and inside that block we have a red keyword. Okay, we have a red keyword or read keyword. Now this read keywords means you are initializing variables and you are also reading the values of those variables by some file, or you can hard code the values inside your code, or you are asking the user for it. So we have enclosed quite a few instructions in one block, that is read. Now this read, as I told you before, actually what it does, it will initialize the variables. It will also ask or the values for the let's say it will all initial it will declare the variables, and in the same time it will also initialize the variables. So all the initialization of the variables, declaring of the variables, types of the variables, and asking the value of their variables, everything has been done by this block here. Okay, so let's go to the formal meaning. A parallelogram is a point where there is input to and output from the code. So it is used for input outputs only, for dealing with input outputs. Okay, either you are reading from a file or console, or you are writing to a file or a console, or anything else to do with input output must always be enclosed in a parallelogram shaped block while using the flowcharts. Now we have used the same keyword in our pseudocodes also. Okay, so inside the pseudocode we have used the keyword read, and the rules will be same. Read and write will always be the keywords used for inputting and outputting the system variables and their values. Okay, so by writing this line in your pseudocode, that is read and the three names, we have actually declared the variables, initialized the variables, and asked for the values of the variables. Okay, so you can see your pseudocode and your flowchart plays hand in hand. Okay, now next, as you can see, going from one block to another block encompasses by or actually done via the arrow functions or the arrow shapes. Okay, so when you go from one block to another block inside the flow chart, you will use these arrows which will indicate you are going from start to a input output block and not the other way. So we are now from the input output block, we have now in this particular shaped block, that is diamond shaped block, and these diamond shaped blocks are actually used for decision making, that is your if and else. Okay, so diamond indicates a point where decision is made. It's like you're saying that if he will come, then I will only go. Suppose you want to go to the market, if and only if you are being accompanied by your friend. So the condition is, if my friend comes, then only I will go. And if you want to show that particular decision making inside a block, you will use, first of all, you have to use the diamond block. And inside the diamond block, you will insert the condition if my friend is there or not. That is my friend, and like here you can write my friend if, yeah, and then towards the arrows two conditions, that is if your friend has come or it has not come. If it has come, you will do something else, and if it has come, you will do something else. That if it does not come, you will not go to the market. If it has come, you will go to the market. So this diamond block shapes will always encompass the condition on which you are going to decide the future course of your action. So inside this particular example, we have the variable that we have initialized and declared in the last input output block called credits. So we are watching the credit here, That is, if its value is greater than or equal to 10. So the decision making block will always be led by the two ways. One is if that conditional statement is, uh, let's say, is true, or if that conditional statement results in false. So if it results in true, you will have a different course of action, and if it results in false, you will have some different course of action. So in this case, my condition after my condition block, the diamond block, we have two courses of action. First is if the credit is not greater than or equal to 10. So we have a different arrow here. We have a different course of action here. And also, if this condition is true, that is credit is greater than or equal to 10, then we have a different course of action here. Okay, so writing yes, no, true, false will be done on these arrows only, not inside the block. So the diamond block will only only encompass the condition only, and the ways, there will always be two ways out of it, or sometimes three if it is a else if block. That is, if this is true, then I will do this. Else if this is true, I will do this, and if nothing is true, I will do this. So we have three conditions here. Okay, so it can have three conditions out of it, or multiple conditions out of it, but then we have to use the multiple diamond blocks in that case. So I'll not go in too much detail. We'll see throughout the whole course these flowcharts in pseudocodes. So don't worry if you don't get the idea what I am saying for the last few seconds. We're just going to see this very basic example here. I'm just here to, today's my objective in this particular lecture is to just give you an idea how things are done while developing an algorithm. Okay. So here we have reached a junction where we'll test a condition if the credit is greater than or equal to 10, and if it is, then we'll take this particular course of action, and if it is not, we'll take the other course of action. Likewise, in pseudocode, we have initialized a block called if else block. Now, if is a keyword, credits is the variable that we have initialized in the last lecture. We know its value here, and the condition is if credit is greater than or equal to 10, and you write the keyword then, that is, it will signify the next course of action. So if the condition, and then will let's say then will precede the next course of action. So then your tuition fees will be 1000. Your tuition fees will be 1000. So if your credits are more than or equal to 10, then your tuition fees is fixed to 1000. And if it is not, which has been accompanied by the else keyword, then your tuition fees will depends on your credits. That is 100 multiplied by your credits. Your credit could be, you know that it is going to be less than 10. Okay, so if it is 9, then your fees will be 900. If your credits is going to be 8, then your fees is going to be 800, and so. And after that, it will be accompanied by end if block. So this is nothing, let's say, complex here. All we have used is the keyword if, else, and end if. We have other conditional statements also called while. We have looping structures also, that is for loop and some other kind of loops. You will see that once you are gone through the looping unit, that is the second unit of this particular subject. And I will show you some pseudocodes there also. Okay. Now, after the end of this condition, we'll always write the end if statement. End if statement will mark the end of all the conditions and what is the future course of action you are going to take after one of the condition is fulfilled. Okay. Now, any type of statement which doesn't involve any input output functions or any decision making will be enclosed in a rectangular box. So here it is, a rectangle indicates the assignment of a value to a variable, constant, or parameter. The assigned value can be result of a computation. You can insert S here. The computation would also be included in the rectangle. Okay, I think we have made pretty clear here. The variable tuition is assigned with the value 1000 in this case, and in this particular case where credit is not greater than 10, first we have computed the value of your tuition, that is 100 multiplied by the credits, and then the value is being assigned to the variable tuition. So all the computations and all the assignments will be done in the rectangular block. And then we have reached a circular block, which is just an addition of the courses of actions or the summation of the courses of actions. This is just a let's say like a traffic signal. If you have gone through this way, you will be allowed. If you have gone through this way, you will be allowed. So there's no ultimate significance there. Circles can be used to combine the flow lines. That is it. Okay. Now the last one. Now we have computed the tuition fees. Now we have to show it to the user also, who is going to use this particular application. So again, we want to output something. We'll use the parallelogram box or the shape for this particular. And there I have written a command called write. Write is a keyword which is used to output something either to the console or to the file or some other kind of peripheral device. And there I have written the name of the student, his SSN number or could be its roll number, and its tuition fees that your particular application has just calculated. Okay, and inside that pseudocode also you can see I've used the write keyword here and the name of the variables whose values you want to output. One more thing, while using some of the conditional or for or the looping blocks, indentation is must. Now this tuition has been indented by one tab, which actually indicates that this is actually a sub block of if block. Sub block means it will be enclosed inside this if block. So this will run only and only when this particular condition satisfies. Also, you can see after else, the calculation of the tuition again is been indented by one tab space. So indentation conveys to you what are the sub blocks of some major blocks. So this particular line here, called tuition is equal to 100 multiplied by the credits, is actually a sub block of the else block. So this particular instruction will be inside the block of else. And how it is done that in actual code, I'll show you when we will get to the second unit. And after that, we have calculated and outputted the result. We'll stop the execution. That is, will again be accompanied by an oval section. And similarly, in the pseudocode, we'll use the stop function, stop keyword. Okay. So that is it. That is your basic flow chart and its corresponding pseudocode. There's nothing, let me again remind you, writing pseudocode has no written rules anywhere. It is just in common, let's say, convention to write. People do write the pseudocode all the times with using their own rules, making their own rules. But then your pseudocode should be like that, that anybody anywhere in the world could understand it. So that is why we have unwritten convention to write the pseudocode. So the keywords must always be in the caps. Your pseudocode must always start and with a start keyword and stop keywords, and you will use indentation for the let's say for the sub blocks. Okay, so I think you're now familiar with the idea of your flowchart and pseudocode. Thank you.